¿Recibo la basura?
No, gracias.
Here's your story, let's begin. The water's fine, come on, dive in. The future's here, it's right before your eyes. Step by step, you're on your way. You're welcome to a brighter day. Don't you know it feels good to be alive? You could be alive.
Okay, I'm in Calarca and grabbing something quick for breakfast. Everything's wet from the rain early this morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning. So I've decided to take a side trip to a coffee farm, and then we'll move on from there. Understand that coffee farms don't just grow coffee. They grow all kinds of companion plants, like we're seeing over these hedges, plantains. Okay, let's go. It's changed a lot since I was here a few years ago. It's set up very touristy, which is not a bad thing. None of these photo op things are really here. They did have a Willys in the back, but it was actually a working Willys. It's nice nobody's wearing a mask here. I guess when you get out in the country, it's no longer important. Look at that, gift shop, workers in uniform. They got a going concern here. This was just a coffee farm. But it was a particularly spectacular one in a beautiful setting. And so I can understand how it's grown into a tourist spot. You got a little walk-through gates. Man, I tell you, you go away for a couple years and things really change.
32,000. 2. Este va acá.
Okay.
Y 2 manillas.
Bogota is so different because the people is like, oh my god,
It's too big.
exactly, yeah. This for the reason.
Yeah, they're afraid.
What? Yeah. Bueno, y gracias a Dios.
So, can I film you?
Yeah, of course. Okay, hello, nice to meet you, Alejandro. Today I'm gonna be your guide. Now we are here in Recuca farm. In this farm, I'm going to show you all the coffee process. How we pick the coffee, roast the coffee, do a good cup of coffee, and things. Okay. All the process, and also I can show you the plantain. It's very important also for our country. In our region, we produce excellent coffee and excellent plantain.
So what's the meaning of Recuca?
Recuca, look. Recuca means in our culture is something like curious and like like something embarrassing. For example, like Recuca. Re is something like big, okay? And Cuca, I don't know if you know what is Cuca in our region. Cuca in our region is something like a cookie, okay? And you can eat it with meal, something like that.
So it's a big cookie.
Exactly, something like that. Exactly, a big cookie, but completely Recuca means like the coffee culture tour, something like that. Remember that for you pick the beans, you only pick the red beans. For example, like this one. Look at this. Like that one. Look. This is the coffee harvest. You only need to pick the red beans. Then you remove the skin. Look at this. Then you remove the skin. You see. And if you want, you can taste it. It's like a sweet.
Yeah.
The coffee has the natural sweet. If you want, you can wash, okay, to remove that part. But if you conserve, at the end, when you are going to prepare the coffee is going to be a little sweet, natural sweet, okay? That part. And in our farm, we don't waste anything. We use the same skin of the coffee like compost. We use the compost, we don't waste anything, okay? I think that is one of the best compost that there are because it's natural. The same skin of the farm. Coffee, you need to identify many things. For example, the altitude, the land, the pH, it depends on that, okay? And here in Colombia, we only produce Arabic coffee for that reason. The altitude, the weather, is very important that. And remember that it depends on the altitude. Between the higher is the altitude, okay, look at this. Between the higher is the altitude, the coffee is gonna be more acid. Less altitude, bitter, strong. Right? So be careful with that. Never pick the coffee in green beans. Okay? Yeah. Never the green beans, only the red ones. Only the red ones.
And I think it's impossible with a machine.
Yeah, of course. But if you want, you can do it. But in this part, in our region, it's impossible because we pay attention to the quality. It's very different than Brazil. For example, what happened in Brazil? Brazil take the coffee by machine. So the machine goes to the coffee harvest and they take it, the tree. They shake the tree and they take everything. Green beans, yellow beans, red beans, even leaves and branches. So it's for that reason. And Brazil is the first country using production. They just produce coffee and that's it. They don't pay attention to the quality.
Yeah.
That happens. So just production. So it's very different in Colombia. What happened here in Colombia? We go to the coffee harvest and we pick the beans by hand. And we only pick the red beans. Then we remove the skin, we wash those beans, and then we dry them. It's for that reason the flavor changes. It's like acid, citrus of coffee. Different than Brazil. Brazil is like bitter, strong. As you see, we plant next to the coffee harvest another tree, like guama and plantain. For what reason? For the shade. Okay, it's for shade. And also, when the leaves fall to the ground, bring like compost, natural compost. So it's for that reason. Nowadays we do a process that is called soqueo. Soqueo process. We cut it. We cut the tree like this one. Look at this. For the insects or something like that. Because what we need to avoid is use chemicals, fertilizers, something like that. For that reason. It's for that reason that nowadays we use it, the smaller one. Look at the size.
Yeah.
More or less like myself, and easy to collect some coffee. And the second reason is because those trees are more resistant to diseases, the problems. Is for that reason. process, the coffee goes to the top, falls here to the panel, right on this strip to the entrance screw. What happened in this part? We remove the skin. Look at this, in this part. In this part we remove the skin. The skin goes to the other room. And in this cylinder, this big cylinder, stay the almond. What you see over there is the compost, the natural compost that we use it. Remember the skin of the coffee? We don't waste anything. And in this cylinder, stay the almond. So what happened? For we export the coffee to our country, we need to export the bigger one. So in this part, we choose the size of the coffee. It's for that reason. If we export a small coffee, the other countries don't pay in a good way. Okay. So in this part, then the coffee goes over here to our process. In this part, we wash the coffee by pressure here. In this part, we remove the slimy part, the slippery part. When I take the coffee, we remove that part. If you wash the coffee over here, what happened? You remove the natural sweet. It's for that reason. When you wash the coffee, at the end, the coffee is gonna be acid, citric, soft coffee. If you don't wash it, the coffee at the end is gonna be a little sweet. Okay, and then the coffee goes to this tanks. Look at this. In this part, it's really easy to identify the coffee. So you know if the coffee is from second hand or first hand, Colombian people or to export. Why? When the coffee has contact with water, there are some coffee that is floating. You see?
Yep.
And there are other coffee that is in the bottom. So what happens when the coffee is floating? That coffee is considered coffee from second hand. It's cheaper. Colombian people. So what happened with the coffee that is floating, David? That coffee inside is empty. So with water, it's floating. So the coffee we use it for second hand, cheaper, right? Then and goes to our process, the dry process. Okay. Very good. Let's go with artificial process to dry the coffee. In this part, we need to use mineral charcoal. If you use, for example, other things like wood, paper, leaves, what happens with the coffee? You are going to contaminate your coffee because the coffee has a property that is very important. That is called hygroscopy or hygroscopia. What happens with that property? The coffee absorbs the smell and fragrances. So it's for that reason I don't use other things.
Now, why do you don't do this with all the coffee?
Remember, only mineral charcoal. If you use, for example,
No,
wood,
the heat.
the coffee that goes over there. The coffee goes over there. What happened with that? You see the cylinder? The hot air goes over here. Look at this.
Okay.
Okay, the hot air goes over here. In this part,
To speed
find the coffee. Yeah.
to speed the dry.
Yeah. Feel. You see?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Seco.
Exactly. The dry process, but in artificial way. Remember, in this part you are going to spend, for example, 16 hours. 16 hours to dry the coffee, but in artificial ways. The amount, the capacity, is more or less like 2 tons. Okay, 2 tons here in this part.
So what coffee is here and what coffee is the other dry?
Remember that the coffee that goes over here is the coffee that we use in the first part, first hand. The coffee that was in the bottom, okay? That's the coffee that we use here. Artificial process. We use it for obligation in winter time, okay? When it's raining.
Yeah.
We need to use for obligation that part. This is the natural process to dry the coffee.
So
Natural process,
you
remember?
bring it out with the sun.
This one. And remember that over there you find the moving roof. In this part, look at this. Look.
Yeah, I see.
I complete the reels over here. And I use that part. Look. You see?
Yep.
The moving roof. Natural process to dry the coffee. And I want to show you that part. Look at this. Look at the difference than coffee from second hand. This one is cheaper. Second hand Colombian people. That's the coffee that's here in Colombia for Colombian people. Cheaper one. Coffee from second hand. Okay? Look at this. And look, I want to show you those cars. Nowadays it's considered like the national car here in Colombia. The Jeep Willys. Yeah.
Yeah.
To move in. Coffee. coffee from second hand, green almond, and dry. You see? Look at the difference between coffee from first hand and second hand. Exactly. To export, Colombian people, cheaper, expensive.
Well, you can buy this in Colombia.
Also, yeah, but it's expensive. And look at the coffee, green almond. It's the same coffee, but without skin. With the skin, without.
Ah.
Okay? But it's the same coffee. Look.
Okay.
But it's the same coffee, okay? In this machine, we are going to roast 250 grams of coffee, half pound. You can roast in the machine. So, how we know that the coffee is ready in this machine? Because in this little pot, this little hole, what we are going to see is a white smoke. So what happens when you see white smoke? The coffee is ready. And also you are going to hear like popping, popcorn. Something like that. Look at this.